But look at this other Mockingbird report that came out over the weekend from 60 Minutes. A whitewash, a total whitewash of the NSA. And of course, this is a guy who has worked in the past for many years as a PR guy for the law enforcement officers, for the intelligence community. He is going back to working for the New York Police Department very soon. But in this report, according to The Wire, 60 Minutes says NSA is good and Snowden is bad. It was just that simplistic. It says, yeah, that's right. The NSA is, quote, defending our civil liberties and privacy, according to Director General Keith Alexander. And on hearing this, the reporter, John Miller, just nods. That's right, just accepts it, never questions it. But everybody is talking about what a puff piece this was, how he didn't get any tough questions, wasn't challenged on this. No skeptics of the NSA, no critics of the NSA were interviewed. But Paul Joseph Watson picked up on something very interesting.
A few times where General Alexander would do a timeout.
Did the NSA actually find a foreign power that had identified this capability and discussed using it offensively?
I need timeout on that.
He looked over like this to the whole crowd of people over there in the dark and said, "Can I answer that?"
Did you get that? A crowd of people in the dark? Some kind of shadow government? Who are these guys? Because this is the NSA's director, and he has to ask these guys permission for what he can and cannot say. As Watson points out, one of the more jaw-dropping moments to emerge out of the 60 Minutes profile piece was when NSA Director Keith Alexander had to ask permission from his superiors on whether or not he could answer a question. And of course, these are people that the reporter, nobody knows who they are. They're not given a name, and they're in the shadows. And so that kind of raises a question. Is Washington become so secretive, so hidden, that people can get away with anything if they appeal to national security? Well, it appears that they can. Look at this guy from the EPA. We got a climate change expert's fraud was a crime of massive proportions, says the feds. The EPA's highest paid employee and a leading expert on climate change deserves to go to prison for at least 30 months for lying to his bosses, saying that he was a CIA spy working in Pakistan so he could avoid doing his real job, said federal prosecutors. Now, this guy was earning a salary of over $206,000 a year. He was the highest paid official at the EPA. He even made more than Gina McCarthy, the agency's administrator. And he didn't show up at the EPA for months at a time sometimes. At one interval, he didn't show up for 18 months. And of course, he said, well, I was in Pakistan and I was doing work involving torture. Somebody that I was going to replace was being tortured over there. But this is what the government does to us all the time. All it has to do is invoke national security, and they can bluff their way through anything, and they can get paid anything. They can charge us massive amounts of money. This is a metaphor for what the entire government is doing, charging us massive amounts of money and bluffing us by saying that it's too secretive, we can't even look. But of course, he was a climate change expert, so he was probably heavily into fraud in the first place. Now, this next article is NSA officials are considering whether or not they will allow Snowden to kind of barter his documents for a pardon. Some want him to be able to do that, and others are pushing back on that. The National Security Agency officials are offering a controversial amnesty that would return Ed Snowden to the United States in exchange for the extensive document trove that he took from the agency. But the problem with all this is that according to Snowden and Glenn Greenwald, Snowden has already turned over all the documents and no longer has possession of any of them. They're in the sole possession of Glenn Greenwald. And he is doling these out as he sees fit. And according to him, he's only put out about 1% of these documents. And of course, the editor of The Guardian was called before Parliament last week and said that he shouldn't be criticized for the secrets that have been leaked about criminal activity on the part of the NSA and the CIA and others, because he said they've consulted with American and British intelligence over 100 times about what can and can't be released. And so that raises a real important question. Are the documents being managed in a way to do what some would call a limited hangout, kind of a information term of a false flag? There's a big question about that, and Sibel Edmonds wrote an article about that and got into a war on Twitter with Glenn Greenwald at the end of last week. I did a report on that. You can see that report on the Alex Jones channel on YouTube. I will have Sibel Edmonds on tomorrow, and we're going to talk about this in depth. What is going on with the documents? Are they being put out slowly to cover up for financial institutions in particular, particularly PayPal, The man who owns PayPal is the one who's giving $250 million to Glenn Greenwald and Jeremy Scahill to start a new quote-unquote alternative media organization. So the question is, what are we being told, and what are the motivations of the people who are releasing this information?
Hi, I'm InfoWars reporter Leanne McAdoo, and as we age, it is inevitable that we may experience a slowdown in vitality, energy, sexual drive, and overall well-being. The reality is that in addition to the natural aging process, the experts admit that our body is continually being hit with a barrage of what's known as gender-bending chemicals, and that's just for starters. So avoiding these chemicals has always been really important to me, and that's why I was so excited to speak with Dr. Edward Group about what's really going on, specifically to find a solution to the root issue. And what I found was that as experts around the world are now revealing, core hormone levels in many men and women are dropping, but especially men. Testosterone, growth hormone, DHEA, all are being affected. Introducing InfoWars Life Super Male Vitality, fusing herbs and other essential ingredients to help support your body's natural hormone balance. Developed by Dr. Edward Group and produced at a highly accredited natural products manufacturer, Super Male Vitality is designed to aid the body in ways that may support normal testosterone levels in men. Focus on improving your sexual vitality with the stimulation of libido and sex drive. Deliver hard-hitting benefits while completely free of GMOs, gluten, and harmful ingredients. And it's all made here in the USA and supports our operation. Single men, married men, I recommend that you get a hold of InfoWarsLife.com Super Male Vitality today, and your woman won't be disappointed.